Okay, so based on the work, and I recorded who did the work and who have not. So it seemed to me that some of us get stuck on number 3 and 4. We forgot what to do with that. So let's quickly for number 1. And then you can put in the chat if you need to. It seemed like 1 and 2. You guys did well, but I'm going to put in the answer just in case you want to check for your work, okay? The answer for number 1 is 720. For number 2 is 210. Then seems to me you guys, half of you did okay with number 3 and 4, but some still kind of like, I'm not sure, can you go over? So for the letters, it's different. So step number 1, you need to figure out the total letters. So in here, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, I miscount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? And then for each letter, I'm going to count to see how many of those. So for B, I have only 1. So here's this is also something that I saw some from some of you, is that you overcount. Instead, like you count that letter and you saw it again and you count it again. So that's a problem. So you cross out the letter that you already used. Then I look at A, which is 1. And then I look at N, there are 2 N. So when you look at the N, you want to cross out both of them just so that you don't count that letters again, okay? Then I look at D, there's only 1 D. Then I have I, there's 1 I, and there's the G. So yesterday we talked about the top will be the total. The bottom is you're going to list out every single letter, the number that you have. So you can do 1 factorial. For the A, you can do 1 factorial, D, 1 factorial, N, 2, I is 1, G is 1. You can do that. You totally can do that. However, just to save space, I'm not going to write every single one with a 1 because it's not going to change anything, because if we divide by 1 factorial is just 1. So basically, I can just ignore those and just write this down. Okay. I also show you how to use decimal to type in. Just in case you forgot, if you in decimal, this is the screen. You can put in the number 7 factorial divide 2 factorial. And that will give you the values. Okay. So the answer for number 3 is going to be 2520. So with that help, I'm going to give a few more minutes for those who need to do number 4. Do that. But I will give you the answer for number 4 so that way you can check. The answer for number 4 is the same as number 3. But you want to try that on your own just to make sure that, okay, I got it. If you don't, check in and let me know. So right now, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1 and 2, is that okay? Is anyone want me to go over 1 and 2? Okay, so for this one is when you have N and R. So I'm going to erase the answer right here. So the formula we're going to use is N factorial over N minus R factorial, right? The first number is N, the second number is R. So we're just going to follow the rule that we have. N factorial, so that's going to be 7 factorial over 7 minus 3 factorial. So now you will have 7 factorial over 4 factorial. When you have this, you can go to decimal. Like I said, for these problems, I like decimal better because it's much faster for me to type in. So I'm going to type in exactly what I have. 7 factorial divide 4 factorial. Oops, I have an extra 4. that would give me 210. So maybe when you put in your calculator, it could be a problem for some of you is how you enter in the numbers. So the answer for this one is 210. Okay. So yeah, sometimes it's like you have to set up, but the answer you get something else because you may mistype the values. So use decimal. My suggestion is go to decimal, typed it in, especially if you have that keyboard in front of you, you can type that exclamation point. So much easier. Okay. All right, so that's what we covered for the last 2 days. What we're going to do today right now is we're going to look at word problems. For permutation, that means N and R is not given to you. And we need to figure that out, and we need to determine when we use this function or when we use something like the letters. Okay, so if you have your paper, this is a good time for you to jot this down. There is 2 types of permutation that you want to remember. The first one is when they give you have a total of n things, and then you only take certain amount at the time. So this is when you have same object, same types. So same types. This is the formula that you're going to use. N factorial over n minus r factorial. This is when they don't care what types. They just say, I have 15 items. I'm going to take 5 at the time. What's going to happen? I don't care if they're different. It's going to be the same types, the same object. The second permutation is the distinguishable object. Is then when you have different types. This is when you have different type. And the example that we've been working on is the letters. Let's say in a word, we have different letters in it. So we have to figure out how many types are there. And this is the one where you have n factorial over n1 factorial, n2 factorial. You keep multiply factorial for each of them all the way until the very last one. So there's 2 cases for you to remember for permutation. Okay, the word problems that I'm choosing is not too bad. So make sure that you follow along. If your Wi-Fi is bad, there is a video for you to watch, and I make sure that right now I'm recording my iPad screen, not my computer, so that should work. Okay. All right. So question for me so far: do you need to copy this down? Should I wait, or should I click on the next slide? Okay. I'm gonna skip this one. All right. So let's look at this word problem. In here, they tell you find n permutation r. So as soon as you see this one, you know this is the formula that you're going to use. Right? You have the total, and then you're going to figure out how many that you take the time. So right now I'm going to ask you, either you unmute or put in the chat when I'm asking the questions. In here, say find the number of ways of forming 3-digit code. So right now I'm just highlight some key information. We have 3-digit code and no digit is repeated. To do this problem, you need to figure out what is your n and what is your r. R is how many that you take at one time. N is a total. So can someone tell me how many numbers that we have in here as total? If you have to guess. Or if you're not sure about n, r is how many that we're going to take. What is r? What do you think? I know this is new, but if you have to guess, can you tell me what is r and what is n? Because this is something that you're going to do on your own, and then that's what. So n is 3. N is the total of all numbers. So in this case, n is not 3, r is 3. R is 3. The reason R is 3 is that's how many numbers that I'm taking at one time. So I just want to make sure that you be clear on that. R is how many that you taken at a time. N is a total of number that you have out there to choose from. So think about digits. It doesn't say in here, but we did it before. Think of all the digits that you can choose from. Remember, you have this list. We did probability before and we talked about digits. We know that we have 10 numbers to choose from. So n is a total of digits that I can choose from. So I have 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So these are the total, right? So it's kind of not quite clear for this one. So I'm going to pause for 1 second. So n is 10 and r is 3. The reason n is 10, the reason n is 10 because you get to choose from all the digits. And we know this is the list, right, on the bottom that I just showed you, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That is a total of numbers that I can choose from. And how many can I choose at one time? I can choose 3 at a time. So R is how many that you can choose at one time. Okay. All right, if you just join Zoom, there is the link for Paradox. If you can, it's in the chat, if you can click on it. So question for me, how I got 10 for N and 3 for R. Is that okay? Because everything else is going to work out now. Once you have N and R, we can just use the formula we know. 10 factorial over 10 minus 3 factorial. 10 factorial over 7 factorial. And you can use decimal to type it in. 10 factorial divide 7 factorial, which give me 720. Okay, question for me and this word problem, because we're going to look at word problems today. It just, you have to identify how many, what is N and what is R. So anything that bothering you, you're not sure. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so in here, they talk about a psychologist shows a list of 8 activities. So I'm going to highlight that. It says 8 activities to her subject. How many ways can the subject pick first, second, and third? Okay, for this time, we need to figure out N and we need to figure out R. So if you can share directly just to everyone or to me, or you can unmute and share. What do you think? What is N and what is R? Thank you for those who've been sharing with me. I really appreciate that, okay? So what do you think? What is N and what is R from this? But look at this one. It says psychologists show 8 activities of her subject, and we're going to pick from first, second, and third. R is 3. Yes, Miguel, R is 3 because you're going to choose 3, the first, the second, and third. So we're going to choose 3 at the time. So yes, R is 3. Perfect. That's good. Thank you. So what about N? What is a total then? N is a total of all the activities. How many do we have total? 8. Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Donna. It is 8, right? That's the total. So now once we have the total, we know the formula, which is a factorial, a minus 3. So 8 factorial over 5 factorial. I'm going to use decimal again. I like to use it because it's much faster. So a factorial divide 3, right? 3 factorial. Give you 6,720. Is it? Wait, is it 3 or 5? Sorry, it's 5. Sorry. So it's 3, yes, thank you, Allie. It's 5. Sorry, I just remember the wrong number. So it should be 336. What do you guys think? Is that okay? It's not too bad. So again, we just have to pause a little bit and say, what is my total and how many I'm going to choose each time. Okay, so go ahead and take a picture or copy it down, jot it down somewhere. It's up to you. I'll give you a few seconds to do it before I move on to the next one. The answer for this one is 74,046. That's the answer. Okay. All right, so let's look at the second type of permutation with word problems. Look at the second one. This is the one where it's not, you don't look for R. This is when you have different types. The different types is when you actually multiply the denominator by a bunch of numbers. So this one, in here, they tell you a building contractor is planning to develop a subdivision. The subdivision consists of 6 one-story. So I'm going to highlight a couple information. 6 one-story house, 4 two-story house, and the last one is 2 split-level house. So in here, we have 3 different types. Okay, the first one is 1 story, the second one is 2 story, and the third one is the split level houses. So we have those 3, right? So those are the types. And the total, they tell you there are 12 houses for each subdivision. So the n gonna be 12 because they tell you that is the total. So for this one, this is a type of problem where you do n factorial over n1 factorial and 2. Like you have a bunch of values on the bottom. Okay, so in here I have n is 12. If you look at the type, I have these 3 types. One of them, you have 6 of those. The second one, you have 4 of those. And the last one, you have 2 of those. So those will be the number that you're going to use. 6 factorial, 4 factorial, and 2 factorial. So that's how I got those numbers on the denominator. The 12, they said for each subdivision, there are 12 houses total. So questions for me on how I got those numbers. And how do I know when I have the number at the bottom, when I know that I multiply the number at the bottom instead of minus? It's when you have different types. They will tell you you have different groups, different types that you get to choose from. The other one, they say, I'm going to take 3 of those. I'm going to take 5 of those. But on the practice, on the summative, I will clearly tell you which one is which. You just have to remember which function to use, that's all. But I will tell you which one that you use n minus r and which one you multiply everything on the bottom. So question for me with that. Well, now this is just a matter of me putting the calculator. So I have 12 factorial divide. I have 6 factorial. I have 4 factorial. Then I have 2 factorial. That gave me the number, which is 13,800. a 60. And I just put it back. So for this one, again, you still need to know the total and how many for each group or how many for each types. And those will be on the bottom on the denominator. Questions? Okay. All right, let's do, I know that I just did that one problem, but I'm going to ask you to try this. Give this one a try. So you need to find the total. How many, so this one is a contractor wants to plant 6 oak trees, 9 maple trees, and 5 poplar trees along the subdivision street. The trees are to be spaced evenly apart, and how many distinguishable ways can they be planted? So you need to know the total. How many tree total? So that's step number 1. I'm going to ask you to try this, okay? Look for the total. And then for each group, how many for each group? I'm going to highlight a couple of things to help you. I know this is new, but it's okay. You can try. Again, this is a check-in point. I will go back and give you credit for the day. So I'm not going to repeat myself. Whatever we do in class, I will give you points. All right? So think about N, the total. So how many trees do we have totals? And then this, we have each group. How many group we have and how many for each group, put that in using this function right here. Okay, so I'll give you about, let's take 3 minutes. All right, so we know the total, yes, the question, yes, the total is 20 because if you count, you add all of them up, we have 23 totals. And now we just have to figure out what to put in the bottom for each group. There's 3 types in there. We need to figure out which one, and those will be in the denominator. Okay, so for today, finish slide 22 and go to do Khan Academy.